I'm Courtney from Parsons Child and Family Center.
Abby from Northeast Parent and Child Society.
Okay.
My new title is Team Leader of Seneca Dorm, which is one of 6 units in our residential treatment center. It's the female unit in our building. The other 5 units are boys.
Okay.
Okay.
So there are no co-ed buildings?
No, none of our programs are co-ed.
Okay. I work in a community residence. It's an OMH facility.
Okay.
It's a group home, so it's based more for independence
Okay.
and building those skills. And it's co-ed, as all of our buildings are.
What are the ages?
My house is 13 to 18.
Okay. Could you explain to me the way your residential programs are structured? Because I know it's a little different from Northeast, and I've always been kind of confused. Like, I've heard names of different cottages, like I've heard of like Rathburn, but I don't know what levels of care they are, how it's structured.
We have an RTF,
Okay.
which is the lockdown facility. We have the RTCs, that's Rathbone and Wasson.
Okay.
We have one for the little kids, it's just 21-day house,
Okay.
and that's Healy House, and we have group homes.
Okay.
Miriam's kind of like a group home,
Okay.
but because it's run by OMH, it's community residence.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. How many group homes do you have total?
490, 217, 353 in Miriam House.
So 4 group homes. Okay. All right. Northeast, we have the residential treatment center, which like I said, has 6 units. It's an 80-bed facility, and then we have a girls' group home and a boys' group home, both located in the community in Schenectady. And then we have SILP Apartments, which is our supervised independent living program, which also falls under the residential umbrella. And there's 13 apartments, and those are for kids who have aged out, 18 to 21, but didn't have a discharge resource, so they stay under our care, and they live in subsidized apartments, and they have a caseworker that kind of helps them with college and jobs and things like that. And then we also have a new program that we just started last year called CHIP, which is the Community Home Intensive Project. I hope I had that right. Which is boys in Schenectady County that are on probation, and it's a way to avoid placement. So they report to the Boys and Girls Club in Schenectady every day after school, and the staff supervise them, and it's structured like a residential placement. They do groups, they have meals together, they do recreation, things like that. But they go home and sleep at night, and they're at their family's home. So it's kind of a new program. It's going pretty well. It's been about a year that it's been up and running, so that's also considered a residential program.
Okay.
So that's.
And you just talked about the SILP program.
Mm-hmm.
We just started a new program for 18 to 21. Your SILP program starts at 21?
No, it ends when they age out at 21. So
Okay.
sometimes, the occasional 16 or 17-year-old, but usually the majority of those kids are 18 to 21 years old until they age out of DSS care at 21.
And the idea behind that is to get them ready for their living on their own.
Right. It's transitional living. And like I said, most of these kids are kids who have either gone home and it was unsuccessful, so they ended up coming back into care, or they just don't have anyone to go home to. So and DSS still has legal responsibility in helping them until they're 21. So we have that program, and it's pretty good for kids that age. They're adults. They're legal adults, so they have the freedom to come and go as they please, but they still have someone kind of keeping an eye on them and assisting them, because even though they're legal adults, they're still kids in a lot of ways. So.
You talked about one of your residents. You say 80 kids in one residence?
Well, we have 80 beds. We never are at 80 kids. We have one unit, it's called our hard to place unit, the Mohawk dorm, and they can only go, there's 10 beds, but they are only licensed for 8, so the most we would probably ever have is 78, but I don't think we've even ever come that close, because it's just a lot of kids to manage in one building. So we have the physical capacity, but we're usually in the like 64 to 65 range in terms of numbers.
So ours are more like little residents. There's less kids. So what is like an 80 unit?
Well,
like?
well, what it is, it's a big, giant building. When you walk in, there's 2 hallways, and so on this side there's 4 units. It's 2 floors. So there's 4 10-bed units. So they're structured, and then upstairs is 2 20-bed units. So, and they look exactly the same. It's just, it's more institutionalized. It doesn't have like a group home feel, but it's, it's the highest level of care in the agency. So the kids tend to have more acute behaviors and things like that. They're usually kids that have been placed for the first time or have stepped down. So we've been getting a lot of kids from RTFs, from that, that are stepped down from RTF, things like that. So, yeah. So it's a lower level of care than an RTF.
And how do you staff like a 2-story unit?
Yeah, well,
Each
unit has its own, each dorm, we call them dorms, has their own team of staff. So my unit, Seneca, has, I have 11 full-time staff, including my overnight staff. Each shift I have usually about 4, maybe 5 staff on for, right now I have 17 girls. So our ratio is 1 to 7 on the dorm.
How's it with 17 girls in the house?
It's a lot. It's a lot. And, you know, and sometimes we've been up almost to 18, 19 kids, and it's a lot. It can be difficult to manage. We find that it's really, that's why it's important to, you know, keep them busy. I'm sure you know that, you know, the activity and the structure, the routine, having a, you know, very structured routine is important. And then it's just kind of divide and conquer when the numbers get that high, because, you know, if trying to manage them all in a group that large is very, very difficult.
Yes.
So
I have, my house has 8 kids.
Okay.
So right now we have, with 3 staff on usually.
Okay.
So we have 5 girls.
That seems like a lot, right? 5 even.
Yeah, it's intense sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I've been in the same unit the whole time. We have, I work doing shift captain, which is a position where you rotate throughout the units as an just to help out with crisis.
Yep.
Do you guys have something similar to that?
Yeah, we have, well, we call them the online on-call team, or the residential supervisors, and they do the same thing. They supervise and assist with crisis. They're a support team. In 2009, we built a new children's home. Well, it started being built in 2008, but we moved in 2009. When I started, like I said, 9 years ago, so 2003, we were in this very old, rundown, out-of-date building. So they finally built the new building. We moved in, and they put a lot of what they did. I thought it was very smart. They took from what we've learned about our kids and incorporated that into the way the building was designed. So you know, we have not locks. We call them egress doors, but you do require a key and a swipe to get in and out of the building and to get in and off of the units. And that was to reduce AWOLs. We had in our old building, it was literally like the kids could push open the door and they were out the door. And we had a huge AWOL problem, so we wanted to reduce that behavior. And then we have cameras. Our residential treatment center has cameras, which has helped. It helps the supervisors, it helps the online on-call team. So, you know, if a kid, says this happened and a staff says that happened, it's like the cameras don't lie. So, it's helped reduce those kind of issues. And we also use it as a teaching tool. If we have restraints or, behavioral problems or maybe a situation that could have been handled better by staff, we can review the camera footage with the staff. Because it's one thing to talk to somebody about it, but it's another thing to say, well, let's watch what happened and then you tell me what you think. So it's helped in teaching and in coaching the staff. We use it in our TCI training sometimes. What else did we add? What other features? A bigger gym, a bigger cafeteria. The whole building is just bigger. So like I said, it was just, we looked at what wasn't working in our old building. It's definitely reduced the AWOLs. Our AWOLs have been down a lot since we've moved in. It does, there are, downsides to it too sometimes, because in the old building it was more, it was smaller, so it had a more intimate feel, so it was easier to kind of, stick your head out of your dorm and yell, and someone could come down from the other dorm. Now it's like you have to have a phone or a walkie-talkie and things like that. Now you can sit in the staff office and you can see the entire unit, so there's just a constant, line of sight, which is good, so it's helped with supervision and things like that. We got nice new flat screen TVs and stuff like that for the kids, so it's a more modern building. So there's some good features, and it's helped tremendously.
The unit I work on, Miriam House, is the newest building, and it was a similar idea. They structured it to meet the needs better and made it a lot more open for visibility and supervision. I'm just going to ask you about the cameras, because we do not have those here. Were those relatively a new addition?
They were installed with the building, so.
What was staff's reaction to that?
I think at first they were uneasy with it, and understandably so, but I think 3 years down the road, it's helped a lot of them at times to have those cameras there.
As far as like investigations?
Investigations, just even, a kid coming to me or to another supervisor and saying this happened, and, and things like that. I think it's been of an assistance to the staff at times. So I think that they are comfortable with the cameras being there at this point.
So like a client would come to you and state that something occurred.
Right.
And they tell you when, and you would review that
and
tape.
I can review the camera footage. Yep.
And then you can find out that that didn't actually happen. Or
You know,
that it didn't.
right. As long as it happened in an area. I mean, there are areas where there aren't cameras. We don't have. They can't see in the kids' bedrooms. We don't have them in the bathrooms. Obviously, I mean, there are privacy and confidentiality issues. So we wouldn't. You know, if something is said that something happened in a bedroom, that's different. But almost every common area in the building is there's video. So.
And the idea behind that was, like, what was the?
It's a security feature. It's to, you know, assist with supervision of the children as well as supervision of the staff. So the idea was to just add more security features to the building. So.
I was in college. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was playing with a kid one day. I said, you know, this wouldn't be a bad job. Just kind of do like volunteer work with like underprivileged kids or something, and be able to like play all day, which is kind of how that evolved. And I looked and I said, oh, well, this is kind of like that, which on a good day it really is. You get to do a lot of things. You can go play basketball and go to the movies, all sorts of really great activities, and it's fun. You get to play.
Yeah. Mine, I was just unemployed. I kind of fell into it. I'd been unemployed for 3 months and have been sending out resumes everywhere. And I was also kind of in a place in my life where I had left college and I was kind of unsure of where I was going, what I was doing. And one day this lady called me and said, I'm calling from Northeast Parent Child Society. I got your resume. And I said, oh, you did? Because I didn't even remember sending it out. But so I went in for the interview and it just fit. You know, she offered me the job and it just worked. It turned out to be something I was good at and I enjoyed doing. And the rest is history. I've been there almost 10 years, so.
There's a lot of talk about employee retention and how they keep people. Now, you've been there for a long time. What has been the thing that kind of held you there?
I think that, well, I think I was recognized for the work I've done. I've been promoted several times, you know, to different roles, and I've been given different jobs and opportunities. So I think the fact that, you know, the people who supervised me over the years have recognized me and, you know, show an appreciation for the work I do has kept me there. I really love working with the girls. I do. I really love working with the kids. I like seeing them grow and change and mature, and you know, so I really do enjoy that. I don't think I could ever do anything that doesn't involve kids. Even if I leave Northeast one day, I don't think I will do something that doesn't involve working with kids at this point. And I think, you know, I've been there long enough that Northeast is sort of a family to me. You know, I do have, you know, the people I've worked with for years and years and years, I have very interesting but very strong relationships with. So, you know, we go through a lot together. It's sort of like being at war with someone. You know, you have that kind of bond with people when you go through some of the things you go through in this line of work. So I think that that's another thing that's kept me there. What about you?
I'd have to agree 100%.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good job. If you have an idea, it's supported and you're encouraged to go with it, which is really nice. Because like, oh, here's an idea. It's like, okay, go do it. Yeah. Oh. Right. So it's like, you know, there's always opportunities to do different things, and definitely always recognition for the work that you do.
Yes, it's important.
Well, the people I work with tend to be a lot of fun. There's usually two different types. There's people that are more structure-oriented and the people that are more therapeutic. And when they're put together, like, it's a perfect team. But you know, like what you were just talking about, you know, you go through a lot of like major crisis, so you always have that like really great bond between the people that you work. And the same that was given to me, you know, being supported with my thoughts and encouraged to share my ideas. You know, everybody kind of does that, so it's like always like a team effort. Like, it's the whole thing behind it is no one's like, this is what we need to do. It's everybody's ideas and opinions, thoughts are taken into account.
Yeah, I would agree. I think, you know, I'm a member of one team. I'm on the, you know, the team of managers for the children's home, so that's my team that I work with, and, you know, we meet weekly, and we work very closely together. We train, we do TCI trainings together and things like that. And that team, you know, we all have very different personalities. We all kind of bring something to the table, and I think that that's good. And I've kind of modeled the team I supervise after that. I think it's important, like you were saying, to kind of have a well-rounded team, have someone who everyone brings a little something different. I think that's very important. So that's what, like I said, I've tried to model my team after that kind of diversity of personality, you know, and then strengths. You know, everybody has different strengths, and I think that that's really important in a team, is being able to know that where the strengths lie in each one of the people on the team, and then kind of divide up the work accordingly. Because some people, some people are paperwork people, some people are, want to go play with the kids people, some people are, like you said, structure, routine kind of people. So being able to recognize that and then, divide up roles accordingly.
Yes. So. I was going to ask, on campus, most of our residents are kind of close together. Mm-hmm. Do you guys have like a lot of work where you guys work together across the campus or across your agency?
In the RTC, a little bit. Yeah, well, I would say definitely in the RTC. We have a lot of activities together with all the different units. They all, the kids have on-campus recreation together. They all go to the gym together. We have cookouts and things like that. So the staff have to kind of all work together in terms of supervision. If there's a crisis on a unit, or if there's, if one unit is having a rough night, the staff from the other units will come and assist. So yeah, I think at the RTC in particular, and then occasionally we will go over and assist the group homes. Maybe send a staff over if they're short-staffed, things like that. So. It's
one of my favorite things is just an overall, how can I help you attitude around. Right. And so it's like you see someone that's stressed out, you kind of giggle because you know what it's like. Yeah. It's like, what do you need? How can I help you?
Yeah.
But we do a lot of community activities as well. We have a club program.
Oh, okay.
So it's like one staff member will organize a group. I did a tennis group last session. So I just took a group of kids from different cottages. Just down to go play tennis for a while. So we do that. The summer, spring, fall, winter. So there's 4 different sessions.
Do you guys have recreational staff that do just purely recreational planning and activities?
We have a couple. Okay. That plan most of the campus-wide events.
Okay. Yeah, we have that too. We have a recreation coordinator, and then he has 2 recreational workers that run the activities and plan things. Sometimes they'll take them out places, things like that. So. We have a rec calendar for the whole community living services program that is put together by them. So,
and then does each unit have a rec calendar?
Sometimes, not a regularly scheduled one. What we'll do is we will plan our own events. Sometimes, like Seneca will plan our own trips. I have one staff in particular who loves, like now that it's summertime, every weekend she wants to go out to the different lakes and the state parks with the kids and things like that. So I'll just tell the rec coordinator, and he'll add it to our overall calendar. So anything that is going to be done by any of the units has to be added onto the overall rec calendar.
Okay. We have activity coordinators in each unit.
Oh, okay.
Which they're an online staff, and so that's like an additional responsibility. So they plan the outings.
Oh, okay.
For the month.
Okay.
Have you had any incidents like in the community?
Yes.
Yeah.
When out on recreational trips, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, occasionally. It's not too often. I remember personally, having a kid, I took shopping, clothing shopping myself, and she kind of took off on me after I, from the parking lot with her bag of clothes. So occasionally we have things like that, but nothing that I think has been too outrageous that couldn't be managed. So no, nothing too serious.
We've recently had incidents, in particularly at the YMCA,
okay.
with being able to staff male and female clients in the locker room and having enough staff of the right gender to take them on those outings.
Okay.
So as a result, we just implemented a new policy where you need like director approval to go on swimming activities, which is kind of kind of tough to plan that far ahead and have the staffing available that needs. But at the same time, you want to make sure they are supervised properly.
We have a pool on campus at our RTC, so our kids just go out the door and go swimming. So we don't really have to go anywhere. You guys don't have a pool here?
We do have a pool.
Oh, you do?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
But it's nice, like you were talking about, to go out into the community and do those kinds of activities.
The biggest challenge I have is that I only have one place to put girls. I should probably explain that more. We have 5 units for boys, and we can divide them up by population. So as I said, we have the hard-to-place unit, and those boys tend to have more mental health problems and, very acute behaviors. We have a unit that has sexually aggressive boys, and so that's one population. And then we have, the other 3 units are kind of general, but they can split them up according to kind of like reasons for placement and some of their behaviors so that we don't run into situations where we have like bullies and victims living on one unit. So we've kind of learned to divide the kids that way. what I have with the girls is I have 17 teenage girls, and they're all of those things. You know, they have mental health problems. I have girls, you know, from Albany who are here, you know, placed on pins and JDs, and then I have this huge variety of kids, which is very difficult to manage in one unit. It's just you know, I have girls getting bullied at times. I have girls, like I said, some of the girls I have I have a step down from an RTF right now, and she's, you know, she's getting picked on. She's just different than the rest of them. So if I could, ideally, I would divide my unit into 2 units so that I could manage them better. Because it's very difficult having that many girls with that many different needs and that many different levels of functioning in one unit, and then having to run them all through the same routine, put them in the same groups, have them sit at the same meals together, and not have them set each other off and send each other into crisis. It's been a challenge at times. So that's, I know, one thing I would change if I could about my program.
I can't identify really the change that I would make, but we definitely have been getting more kids in that have higher needs than we are accustomed to dealing with. So it's kind of, where dinner used to not be so challenging, getting through dinner without someone throwing milk at someone is getting harder and harder, just because they're all sitting together in one spot at the same time. So it's just adjusting to the new kinds of clients coming in. Yeah. And kind of finding ways around it as that happens.
Yeah. It's sort of like you kind of have to roll with the punches and do like impromptu planning all the time. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I can relate to that. We've dealt with that too. I know they talked about, you know, we've had a couple consultants and people come in and do trainings and stuff, and they all talk about how the clientele's gotten pushed down, how the kids who are in RTFs are now in RTCs, and the kids who are in RTCs are now in group homes and things like that. And so I can definitely relate to that, because we have had some very, very challenging kids that we've worked with I would say over the last 2 to 3 years. It's gotten steadily tougher with these kids. And I think, you know, a lot of it, you know, is I don't know how much you've talked about trauma and trauma-informed care. With something that we're starting to implement is ARC. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's just trauma-informed care, dealing with, it's attunement, regulation, attachment, regulation, and competency. And it's just focusing on, you know, these kids with these complex traumas, because most of these kids, I'm sure you know, a lot of the kids you work with, it's not just one bad incident that's happened in their life. It's multiple bad incidents that happened in, you know, their early years that just traumatized them. And so it's dealing with them in a different way, because kind of the old way just isn't working anymore. The old child welfare model of just, you know, give them this kind of structure of a program and, you know, help them get a job, or, you know, give them, you know, send them on home visits. That doesn't work anymore. So we're kind of looking at some new things. So
is that comparable to like our TCI training, or that's?
No. TCI is just dealing with crisis. ARC is looking at everything. It looks at, you know, your program, your milieu, your the way you individual treatment plans for kids, everything. It looks at the overall program, and looks at different ways to approach the kids, because, you know, the trauma, what, you know, they're finding is that these kids with these complex traumas just don't respond to, you know, like the kind of old, like, if you do this, you'll lose this, and, you know, I'll take this away from you if you behave this way. Like, that just doesn't work in teaching these kids, because they're finding their brains are different, that due to the trauma they've had, you know, their brains have developed differently, and they just can't respond in the same way. So it's more of an overall kind of change in the program. So we're actually having a 2-day training at the end of July, and then we're going to start implementation in the fall for some new kind of just a new model to deal with them. So
we work with the sanctuary model.
Yes, I've heard about that. How is that?
Sanctuary is fantastic. I'm trying to see if I can get all this right, but it does a lot with like safety plans and positive reinforcements. Are you familiar with safety plans?
I don't know. It might be similar to an ICMP. I'm not sure. Maybe
it's things that kids identify to help them cope with their difficulties. So it might be as simple as going outside to play kickball. Okay. So you see a kid that's you know, being triggered and they're escalating. It's like, how do we get this kid to calm down? Well, they've identified that kicking a soccer ball can help them to calm down. So we're going to encourage them to do that. Okay. Developing behavioral plans, which is something we didn't have to do in the past so much with our kids. But in recent times, it's like, you know, maybe the kids that are higher needs need a chart, a sticker chart.
Right, yeah.
Sort of a thing.
Visual in their room. Yeah.
And so if we can get you to do your shower every day this week, you know, there's a prize at the end of it.
Right, yeah.
Red flag meetings, if a kid's having a particular struggle, you know, calling everybody together to say, you know, like, how can we solve this problem? Like, what can we do to help this kid get through this time? And what's causing this problem? Team meetings, which sounds like you guys are very team-oriented as well.
Yes, yeah, we have weekly team meetings. Well, I know one thing, not just from this conversation, but also just in other conversations and situations I've run into just between the two agencies, in particular with the residential programs. I think that there's a lot that we can learn from each other moving forward. I think that we, you know, Northeast focus a lot on transitional living for the older adolescents. You know, we do a lot of IL stuff. We do a lot of you know, preparing kids for adulthood and for independence. So I think that that's kind of our thing we do, in particular in residential. And then I know that you guys have a lot of knowledge in the mental health population. I've actually had staff that used to work at Parsons that work residentially with us now, and they are a wealth of information on that population that I didn't have prior to talk, you know. So I think that at least those two particular areas, I think we could learn a lot from each other and help and assist each other, and it could be very complementary relationship moving forward. So I know that's one thing that I've actually had discussions with my colleagues about.
I'd say Parsons pretty good about meeting the needs of the clients that we serve. As far as the needs have changed, so now we need to readapt our program to meet those needs, rather than trying to make the kid fit into our structure.
Yeah.
So you kind of see a lot of neat things pop up to accommodate the needs. And I hear people's concerns about people being nervous about the affiliation, but I don't have those. I feel that all the information is there, and everybody's always asking, you know, what do you think about this? And it's just such an open experience that there's really nothing to be concerned about.
I think it's something to be excited about, if anything. I think that, you know, it's good, because I know that, you know, in the past it's been difficult at times to work with other agencies, and I think that this is a good bridge for the two agencies to work together in different ways moving forward. And I've never really saw it as a bad thing, and I don't think any of the staff that I've spoken with in the residential programs at least seem to be too concerned about it. So
I haven't heard that either.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that it'll stay that way.
Yeah.